The U.S. intelligence community is now backing off reports that Russia put bounties on the heads of U.S. troops, downplaying what was at one point a major election story. A senior Biden administration official says our intel agencies have, quote, low to moderate confidence in the reports, meaning the story is at best unproven and possibly untrue. But last year, President Biden, Democrats, and the media often cited the reports to attack former President Trump, with some even crying treason. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Campagno. Here today, my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany, former State Department spokesperson Morgan Ortagus, and joining us today in the center seat, Jason Chaffetz, former Utah congressman and a Fox News contributor. Now, when this story first made headlines last year, it prompted a wave of criticism against then-President Trump. And even though the reports were unproven then, the White House press corps did not hold back when our own Kayleigh McEnany was at the lectern. Kayleigh stood at that White House podium and told the New York Times that their story was wrong and that she was hammered for it. Watch, and Kayleigh will get your perspective to this on the other side.
Russia bounty story. Was he out of the loop by his own intelligence community?
No, as I noted, there was not a consensus among the intelligence community. And
what does the president have to say to military service, the families of service members who are really afraid that their loved ones might have been killed in connection to this Russia bounty?
Does the president or the administration plan to make it very clear to the Russian Federation that there should not be bounties placed on the heads of American soldiers serving in Afghanistan?
Did the president raise the issue of Russian bounties on the lives of American troops during that phone call?
It's been a month since there were reports of Russian bounties on American military forces, and yet the White House has done nothing to push back on Putin. What is the delay?
Kayleigh, your perspective.
Yeah, I was asked dozens and dozens of questions about the Russia bounties. I cautioned reporters on the first day the story came out, and I said, look, do not be so quick to buy this New York Times story. This information is unverified. There are dissenting opinions in the intelligence community. Do not run with this narrative. It's just simply not true and not the case. But not only did they run with it, it is remarkable if you take a walk through memory lane at the New York Times, convincing military families who had their loved ones killed in action that, in fact, Russia bounties were probably to blame. And not only that, but their commander-in-chief, President Donald Trump, just simply didn't care. It was a heinous allegation. They ran with it. CNN dropped the word alleged from their reporting. The Washington Post said they had verified the reporting and then went on to give President Trump 4 Pinocchios over it. It was amazing. It was a story a narrative that set in the summer and one that took hold and was so heinous at the heart of it that the commander-in-chief would not care about United States military men and women in the line of battle. It was egregious, and I'm glad that this day of accounting has come.
Morgan, what exactly does moderate or low confidence mean? And tell us about the risks that this kinds of leaks pose to the intelligence community.
Yeah, I mean, Kayleigh and I were both working on this at the time, and I can tell you over at State and DOD, this was incredibly frustrating because, so first, when you talk about low to moderate confidence, it's important to know that the intelligence community has not changed their assessment on this reporting. It's been reported in open source and news articles that this was single source intelligence, which means that this wasn't an analytic finished product that the intel community had looked at. This was a rumor, right? This is a debunked rumor. The writers, the authors at the New York Times who wrote on this write on Intelligence Matters. They were explained to this behind the scenes by the DOD, by Milley. You could go through the list. I mean, every senior defense official that we had, Robert O'Brien gave a briefing on this. And the real problem here is that you had a single individual take a piece of raw intelligence, leak it to the media, and the media ran with it because it was a narrative that fit what they thought about President Trump. And they essentially, I said this earlier this morning on America's Newsroom, they tried to goad President Trump and our military into a conflict with Russia over a debunked rumor. This is just, it was incredibly irresponsible. It was incredibly frustrating at the time to see the media and the Democrats run with this, and many of Democrats who really, like President Biden, who knew much better because they've dealt with intelligence issues for a long time.
Jason, you were chairman of the House Subcommittee on National Security, so share with us your perspective from that political perspective, while you had colleagues that were calling this at the time an outrage, treason, and worse during that situation when, as Morgan and Kayleigh have pointed out, the intel was quite clear to them on that side?
I think what's most outrageous and added to a very, very long list is Congressman Schiff and Congressman Swalwell. They sit on the House Intelligence Agency, and then they would come out in front of the cameras and be able to say, well, look, we've seen classified information that the rest of you haven't had. And they threw flames, they threw gasoline on this fire, and they kept telling people that it was true, that it was worse, that it was treasonous. And that was all political theater. And it isn't the first time that they did this. They didn't just get it wrong. It wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated political ploy. And why these two still sit on the House Intel Committee is just fundamentally wrong, and shame on Nancy Pelosi for continuing to appoint them, because they use this as a political bludgeoning tool. And for Kayleigh and to Morgan and Robert O'Brien and all the people that were there looking at the actual intelligence, I'm sure the apologies and I'm sure the corrections will just come flowing in today.
Right.
And Jason, this was part of a campaign tactic. This was part of a narrative pushed by, for example, then candidate Biden about Trump's failure to admonish Russia over it, about his failure to be briefed. They ran with this really far during the campaign.
They did. And again, it was a narrative that they started even before Donald Trump became president. They ran with it for 4 years. And it's absolutely not true. All the fiction and the hoax about Donald Trump and Russia, they never came up with anything. And they continued to use it. And now we get through the 4 years of Donald Trump, and there isn't a single bit of evidence. In fact, Donald Trump was tougher on Russia than we're seeing President Biden and certainly President Obama. And so you want to see who's being soft on Russia right now? It's Joe Biden. Russia is amassing troops on the Ukrainian border, and you barely hear a peep out of this president.
Emily,
Harris.
can I back up? Can I back him up? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Morgan, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say that this type of thing has global ramifications. The congressman is absolutely right. There's global ramifications whenever we run with bad intelligence, we present it to the world as fact, and then we later have to backpedal on all of this. And so one of the reasons why Kayleigh and I and at the DOD we were pushing back on this so much is because there are plenty of the things that the Russians do that are egregious, that are wrong, amassing troops at the Ukrainian border, as Jason just talked about. And whenever you start blaming the Russians for debunked rumors, for bad intelligence, for raw intelligence, it loses the veracity. It loses the effect and our ability to hold Russia accountable for the many things that they do that are quite egregious. And so that's why it's so dangerous. It undermines what Russia is actually guilty for and undermines our ability to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And we see that same sort of thing, Harris, internally. Mm-hmm.
You know, I just want to jump in a little bit here because Senator Cotton, who joined me last hour, was saying that there are some real tangible ways that we can look at how Joe Biden now is handling Russia. The pipeline. Jason, I'll come back to you on this point to fill in the blanks on some of the things that we're watching. If the media were really doing its job, it would be looking at those items and saying, okay, well, you're not watching what's going on there. You're not watching the troops massing. What you're doing is you're watching an old narrative that now has been debunked. And by the way, why wasn't it debunked when some on Capitol Hill, like Senator Cotton, took a look at it and said there's no there? That's why it sits in that very low to moderate confidence category of intelligence. I mean, why weren't the questions burgeoning then? Instead, we saw this perpetual, with Kayleigh at the lectern, game of gotcha. I mean, it was just, oh, we got you today. We got you today, Kayleigh. We got you. And Kayleigh, your response would be, well, let me show you how you didn't. You know, and it was just, what was that game about? Because now we really are in a capitulated position with a country that means us harm.
Yeah, Harris, if I could just say, and there are ramifications to this. Let's be very clear what's at stake here. I read statements to the press from the CIA, from the Department of National Intelligence, from the National Security Council saying what you are doing is so damaging to our ability to collect intelligence. No ally is going to want to share intelligence if it's criminally leaked to the New York Times. Obama dealt with, on average, 33 referrals, and I told the press this at the podium, 33 referrals of criminal leaks. President Trump was dealing with 100 on average every year, referrals to the DOJ. This is damaging. There are consequences for American lives, American troops, when the press runs with a narrative and we don't get the intelligence we need to protect our men and women abroad and protect our men and women at home.
Morgan, I'd like to give you the next word as well. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, the part of it was an election year, and they were trying to continue to discredit the president. They tried and tried and tried again, and the traditional media just ran with it. And meanwhile, you have a very responsible General McKenzie, who's in charge of the United States Central Command, telling us he hasn't seen the information. So somebody needs to be held accountable. And for me, again, I go back to Swalwell and Schiff, because they had access, they could see it. They weren't just repeating, what showed up in the New York Times. They have the responsibility, and they should be held accountable for spewing classified information that was not true and doing it for purely political reasons.
And Morgan, I believe that I was
of,
standing next to you. Go ahead, please.
Sorry. I was just going to say, speaking of accountability, I'd like to see some accountability to the New York Times and the Washington Post and reporters in Washington who understand intelligence and understand that this was raw and unverified intelligence and still ran with it anyway. I'd like to see some accountability there.
Yes.
And furthermore, you know, we had these questions about why wasn't this being briefed to President Trump. You have to understand that when the president gets his daily brief, as Kaylee and others know, this goes through layers of the intelligence community. It's analyzed. You rarely present raw intelligence to the president. There's so many things that were wrong with this story. I mean, if you reported every rumor to the president, you could spend all day with the president giving him rumors around the world. That's not how intelligence reporting works. So if you go through layer after layer, the president was being questioned about why weren't you briefed this when it was something that would never rise to his level until it had gone through a full intel community analysis and assessment. So the story's bad. There needs to be some accountability, not only in Congress, but to the media who reported it, and the Dems, including President Biden, who spun it for political purposes throughout a campaign season.
Exactly.
Senator Cotton says that Biden owes Trump an apology.
100%.
We'll have to leave it there, but we could certainly talk about this all hour, all day, and your perspectives are so valuable, all of you.